WNBA free agency off to a blazing start. We got news coming out of the desert in Phoenix, Arizona. The unicorn, Satou Sabally, will not be returning to the Phoenix Mercury. I told you this new CBA free agency, it is changing the entire landscape.
Free agency just exploded in Phoenix. Satou Sabally, the phenomenon, the 7-footer who can control the ball and shoot from any spot on the court, is walking away from the Mercury after just one season, not traded, not released, choosing to leave. And this isn't some silent exit. Multiple teams are already scheduling meetings while it's wide open. So, what went wrong? How does a team that was one series away from the title just lose one of their core three?
Not be returning to Phoenix. Now, I guarantee if the CBA wasn't the way it was and they could afford 3 maxes and could still court a quality team, they would probably be bringing her back. But they can't do it. This here is on Yahoo Sports. Satou Sabally is not expected to re-sign with the Mercury. Sabally should be with multiple teams once negotiations open up. So Satou Sabally done in Phoenix already. It was a short run. They had a shot in the championship, but it did not work out.
Here's the situation Phoenix is dealing with, and it's the same situation that's about to transform this entire league. The new CBA changed everything. You cannot afford 3 max contract players and still assemble a competitive roster around them. The numbers don't add up. Brittany Griner is locked in. Diana Taurasi, even at the tail end of her career, commands respect and dollars. Kalia Copper just had a breakout year and wants to get compensated accordingly. Someone had to go. But here's what makes this so compelling. Satou was the one holding all the cards. She's 29 years old, entering her prime, and she's one of the most distinctive talents in the league. A 7-footer who averaged 18 points and 8 rebounds while shooting 37% from 3. That's not just max contract material. That's franchise cornerstone material.
Get real whiny, real complaining. And y'all know Satou want a max. She complained all last season. I want my money. She don't care. She want the bag. Who is going to cough up the dough for Satou Sabally to...
And let's be straightforward about Satou's character. She's never been quiet about wanting her worth. Throughout last season, she made it obvious she felt underpaid and underappreciated. She spoke out publicly. She made it clear that when free agency arrived, she was going to get everything she deserved. Phoenix saw this coming. They had months to untangle the financial puzzle, and they couldn't crack it. Now, consider what this means for the expansion teams. The Golden State Valkyries are sitting there with a blank slate and a budget. They need a star. They need someone who can be the face of a brand new franchise. Satou Sabally checks every single box. She has the talent, the name recognition from her time in Dallas, and she has demonstrated she can deliver on the biggest stages.
This is going to be very, very, very interesting to see. Okay, it's a bunch of free agents out there. I think the Golden State Valkyries could make a big-time push for Satou. I could definitely see the Golden State Valkyries making a push for Satou. I could see Portland, Toronto. I could see these teams making a push to bring in Satou Sabally on a max deal and have her be the #1 option on the team. She's going to have plenty of suitors. She's going to have plenty of suitors, and I think she's gonna make a big time splash.
Portland and Toronto are in comparable positions. Brand new franchises desperate to make a statement. You can't build an expansion team around role players and wishful thinking. You need that one player who walks into the arena and instantly shifts the culture. Satou could be that player for any of these teams. She could step into Golden State and be the #1 option from day one, something she never quite had in Phoenix with Diana still running the show. But there's danger here too. Satou has a track record. She pushed her way out of Dallas after the Wings drafted her. She's been outspoken, sometimes to the point of becoming a distraction, about her contract situation. Any team that signs her to a max deal is gambling that she'll be content being the centerpiece, that the grievances will quiet down once the money is right. The Wings found out the hard way that talent alone doesn't guarantee chemistry. They had Satou, Arambo, and solid pieces surrounding them, and it never came together. She wanted out. So now Phoenix is in the same boat, talented player. 1 year, gone. That's a pattern.
Skylar Diggins. Now, Skylar Diggins put out something where she wrote a letter to her home state in Indiana and how she's talking about there's nothing like playing basketball in Indiana. Are you trying to make a ploy for the Indiana Fever to come get you. I'm going to be honest. I'm out. I'm all the way out on Skylar Diggins joining Caitlin Clark in the Indiana Fever. I want nothing to do with it. I have watched. I saw what Skylar Diggins was doing. Jewel Lloyd wanted nothing to do with Skylar Diggins, NECA, and the coach up there in Seattle. Jewel Lloyd didn't want nothing to do with them. I got to keep it real. I remember Skylar Diggins arguing a lot in Phoenix when she was with Diana Taurasi and the Mercury and all that. I don't want nothing to do with Skylar Diggins.
Now, let's shift to the other major free agency story unfolding right now. Skylar Diggins-Smith and this love letter to Indiana. She posted this heartfelt message about growing up in Indiana, about how basketball isn't just a sport there, it's a way of life. She's talking about being a child of the corn, about never forgetting where she came from, and the timing is awfully suspicious. Indiana just had the biggest season in WNBA history thanks to Caitlin Clark. They sold out every game. They pulled the highest ratings the league has ever witnessed. They're about to have cap space and roster openings. And here comes Skylar, a Notre Dame legend, an Indiana native, publicly declaring her devotion to home right as free agency kicks off. On paper, it makes perfect sense. A seasoned point guard who can guide the young superstar. Hometown hero comes back. Great narrative. Except there's a massive problem. Skylar Diggins-Smith carries baggage that Indiana absolutely cannot afford right now.
Clark, I'm sorry, I'm good. And you're probably going to be expecting to log heavy minutes. We don't need that type of backup. We need somebody that's going to come play 8 to 10 minutes in mind and go on, be quiet, go on about their business, be a team player. I don't have time for Skylar Diggins. You know, I think she's a good player. She's a good point guard, but I feel like it's a lot of drama that be following her in this league. And I just don't want to do. I don't want nothing to do with these old guard players. I'm gonna be real. I don't want nothing to do with them. But let's take a look at what Skylar Diggins had to say in this heartfelt message to Indiana. And I kind of want to, this is a certain part I really want to get to, and then I'll play the entire thing. Let's take a look.
Jay's with you.
Let's talk about Skylar's history. Seattle wanted absolutely nothing to do with her. Noelle Quinn, the head coach, essentially pushed her out after just one season. Before that, she was in Phoenix clashing with Diana Taurasi, creating locker room tension. She's bounced around the league not because of a lack of talent. She's legitimately a starting caliber point guard, but because of the chaos that follows her. Indiana doesn't need that. They have Caitlin Clark, who's already the face of the franchise, already handling point guard responsibilities at an elite level. They have Kelsey Mitchell, who has her own contract situation brewing and might be feeling some unease about new head coach Stephanie White coming in. They have Aaliyah Boston working to develop into a dominant post presence. The last thing this team needs is another strong personality who's going to demand significant minutes and touches. Think about what Skylar would expect. She's not coming to Indiana to play 8 minutes off the bench. She's a 3-4-year-old veteran who still sees herself as a starter, as a primary ball handler. But Caitlin Clark just delivered one of the greatest rookie seasons in league history. She led the league in assists. She shattered the single-season assist record. The ball is in her hands, period. So where exactly does Skylar fit?
I want to return to play at home in Indiana where they live and die basketball. And I respect that. I understand that. I respect the fact that I watched Skylar Diggins come up. I remember her playing in the All-American game, being a fan of her as a kid at Notre Dame. She was the hottest thing smoking in college basketball.
And here's the deeper issue. Skylar was a superstar at Notre Dame. If NIL had existed when she was in college, she would have been a millionaire before she ever set foot on a WNBA court. She was that significant of a deal. She had endorsements. She had the spotlight. She was the face of women's college basketball for years. That's a hard thing to release. Now she's watching Caitlin Clark receive that same treatment, except amplified by 100 because of social media and the current cultural moment. Clark is getting the attention, the money, the admiration that Skylar probably feels like she deserved back in her era. That's a tremendously difficult dynamic to navigate inside a locker room.
No. We already got to deal with old guard Stephanie White. We already got to deal with Bree Turner and pushing her messages. It's a lot going on right now. I don't have the capacity. This team doesn't have the capacity to deal with a Skylar Diggins. She's going to want to come home and be treated a certain way. Listen, I just want a role player as a backup. I think Skylar Diggins will be a good get for another team that needs a veteran point guard. She's a legitimate starter. She's no scrub. She can hoop. She's a starting point guard in this league. I don't want to deal with Skylar Diggins on the Indiana Fever. That's just me and my stance.
Here, ball really is life.
Here, ball is life. Listen, man, shout out to Skylar Diggins. Good luck in free agency. I'm out. That's all. I'm not trying to get crazy. I'm just saying I'm out. We got our face of the franchise at the point guard position in Caitlin Clark. I don't need other players coming here trying to take the ball out of her hands. We already dealing with a lot with this whole Kelsey Mitchell, Stephanie White dynamic. It's too much. It's too much. I think she'd be a good pickup. Look, Chicago Sky needs somebody. Connecticut Sun probably could use a guard. I don't know. I don't know where you're going to go. I just don't want it around Caitlin Clark. I'm just keeping it all the way real. I don't know. I don't know where you're going to go, but I don't want it to be the Indiana Fever. Get down in the comments and let me know what you guys.
So let's bring this all together. What we're witnessing right now is the new CBA forcing teams to make impossible decisions. Phoenix had 3 max-level players and could only afford to retain 2. They chose Griner and Copper, and Satou walked. That's going to keep happening across the league. Connecticut is in a comparable situation with Alyssa Thomas demanding a max deal. Los Angeles has to figure out how to hold their core together. Minnesota's window is closing rapidly with their veteran roster. The expansion teams are about to become major players in this market. Golden State, Portland, Toronto. They have the cap space to extend max contracts without sacrificing depth. They can promise players the opportunity to be the face of a new franchise, to construct something from the ground up. For someone like Satou Sabally, who has been outspoken about wanting to be appreciated and compensated like a star, that's tremendously appealing. But here's what nobody's discussing. What happens when these expansion teams realize that max contracts don't guarantee success? The WNBA isn't like the NBA where one superstar can drag a mediocre team into the playoffs. The talent pool is too deep, the competition too intense. You need chemistry. You need role players who understand their responsibilities. You need a system. Satou Sabally on a max deal leading a roster of expansion draft picks and minimum salary players, is that genuinely a playoff contender? And that's the gamble. These expansion franchises are going to overpay for available talent because they have no alternative. They can't build exclusively through the draft. Not in a league where the draft is only 3 rounds. They need to generate buzz in free agency to sell tickets and build momentum. Satou fits that profile perfectly. But in 2 years, when Golden State is sitting at the bottom of the standings despite paying her 30% of their cap, what then? Indiana's situation with Skylar is different but equally complicated. They don't need a star, they already have one. They need complementary pieces who understand their role and won't create friction. Skylar Diggins-Smith, for all her talent, has never been that kind of player. She's always been the lead guard, the primary option, the vocal leader. Asking her to come off the bench and play limited minutes behind Caitlin Clark is asking her to be someone she has never been throughout her entire career. Chicago could use her. They're rebuilding around Angel Reese and need veteran leadership. Connecticut could use her if they lose Alyssa Thomas. Even Dallas, ironically, might make sense if they want to bring her back home. But Indiana, it's a poor fit, disguised as a feel-good story. The other factor here is age. Skylar is 34. In WNBA years, that's approaching the final chapter. She has maybe 2 more productive seasons remaining. Indiana is building for the long haul with Clark, Boston, and Mitchell, all under 26. Why would you invest significant money and roster spots in a player whose timeline doesn't align with your core? And let's address the elephant in the room, the veteran versus new generation dynamic that's been brewing in the WNBA all season. There's been underlying tension between veteran players who constructed this league and the new generation receiving all the attention and money. Skylar is firmly in that veteran camp. She's been vocal about feeling undervalued. Placing her in the same locker room as Caitlin Clark, who represents everything the veterans never received, is a formula for resentment. So here's where things stand. Satou Sabally is about to get paid, most likely by an expansion team desperate to make a statement. She'll sign a max deal, become the face of a franchise, and we'll find out if she can lead a team the way she's always believed she could. Phoenix will attempt to move forward with Griner and Copper, hoping they can find depth pieces to replace what Satou contributed. It's a calculated risk on both ends. Skylar Diggins-Smith will receive offers. The question is whether Indiana is sharp enough to decline. They should be targeting a backup point guard who's comfortable playing limited minutes, someone who can operate the offense when Clark rests but doesn't crave the spotlight. That's not Skylar. It never has been. And attempting to force her into that role because of the Indiana connection would be a costly mistake. The new CBA is doing precisely what it was designed to do, distributing talent across the league, preventing super teams, and forcing difficult roster decisions. But it's also generating disorder. Teams that assembled championship cores suddenly can't afford to hold them together. Players who earned max contracts are discovering their teams can't compensate them without gutting the roster. Free agency used to be predictable. Not anymore. Keep a close eye on the expansion teams. They're about to reshape the league's competitive landscape. If Golden State lands Satou and builds intelligently around her, they could be playoff-bound in year one. If they overspend on big names without considering fit, they'll be lottery-bound for years. The same applies to Portland and Toronto. This is their opportunity to get it right from the very beginning. And watch Indiana closely. If they sign Skylar Diggins-Smith, it'll reveal everything you need to know about whether they're genuinely committed to building around Caitlin Clark or whether they're going to let nostalgia and feel-good narratives dictate their roster decisions. Because right now, they have a chance to build a dynasty. Clark is that exceptional. Boston is that talented. Mitchell is that productive. Don't ruin it by adding personalities that don't belong. So what do you think, should Indiana bring Skylar home? Or is that a disaster in the making? Where does Satou land? And does she finally become the #1 option she's always believed she deserved to be? Drop your predictions in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button because free agency is just getting started, and we'll be breaking down every major move as it unfolds.